Welcome back to the show. If you are just tuning in for the first time, this is a show that talks about everything that concerns you. Of course, you can call us and you can comment on our YouTube page. Our phone numbers are 070-2500-7749 or 070-142420. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV. Now we're going straight into our hot topic for today, and of course we have an expert guest who will be joining us right now. Our topic for today is mapping climate vulnerability, and we are asking who are the 900 million people who are affected. Historically, the world began paying closer attention to climate-related poverty after the 1992 Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, when the UN created the Framework Convention on Climate Change. But decades later, despite conferences and pledges, developing nations, especially in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, remain on the front lines. In Africa, the story is sobering. From the Sahel's desertification to Nigeria's flood and East Africa's drought, climate extremes are displacing families, destroying crops, and deepening poverty. According to Nigeria's National Emergency Management Agency, floods in 2022 affected over 4 million people and displaced more than 1.4 million, making it one of the deadliest climate disasters in recent history here. This morning, we'll unpack who these vulnerable populations are, why they remain most at risk, and what can be done to protect them. Joining us is Dr. Tuyi Mebawondu. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Nebawondu, a respected public health consultant and climate resilience advocate. But now the Doctors Network is not allowing him to join us right now. So I'll just go straight into asking my co-anchors. The idea that they have said that Nigeria had in 2022, just 2022, that I don't think I remember 100% what happened to me in 2022, but they're saying that that was the phase that we had the worst climate disaster in the history of Nigeria. And we're looking at 2025 where floods is now worse. I mean, there's so many news talking about people now taking feces as water, cholera everywhere, malaria. Everybody has gotten sick. One person, I can't tell anyone within my close circle that has not had one phase of sickness this year, and you cannot necessarily pinpoint. Exactly, and you would pinpoint it to maybe malaria, typhoid, whatever. But if you really look at what has been happening from maybe with your system, with eating, with all of that, you can tell that malaria did not just pounce on you, or typhoid or whatever, or any bacterial infection did not pounce on you. It came from all the exposure to some of this flood water. I remember that I think 2 weeks ago, I had to walk inside. To be able to go to the other side, I had to walk in flood water. And trust me, before getting back home to wash your leg and say you are cleaning whatever, it's dry. And that's bacteria that have sat for good number of hours, done their job, and probably left you to sickness.
I heard you talk about, the people that are displaced. As much as you might not want to count me as people that are displaced, but I won't lie to you. When I got to Lagos, the flood, it mentally affected me, because I am wondering. I remember the first day that I had to, I don't know if you were there, but I think I got to experience it with Oluchi and maybe Chioma, I can't remember. Yeah, that I realized that I had to dip my leg inside the flood. I mentioned it that day. I said my eyes is seeing different things. So it's a whole lot. Like, beyond the displays, there are people that, like, whenever I see that flood, it just turns me off. I'm just wondering that what kind of thing is this? Do you mean I have to get inside this? Talk about even people that their properties, everything is just damaged because of that kind of situation. So it's just a whole lot. So I think the climate shock is a whole lot on Nigerians. 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. This flood, but we should even be grateful, because when we talk about, you came all the way from, other countries, other part of the world, and then down to Nigeria. When you hear people say things like, we should even be grateful that we don't have as much climate shock that all people from other parts of the country or other parts of the world are experiencing, that it is just left with maybe like flood. That's the like maybe the worst hit that we're experiencing in Nigeria. But even with that, a lot of people have lost a lot of things, their properties, everything. So I really think that this climate thing is something that we can be grateful as Nigerians, but still we need to put in a whole lot of things when it comes to putting systems in place to actually reduce the effect of flood, especially in a state like Lagos.
Okay,
Honestly, I mean, I'm thinking about the trauma myself, and I think I am still even experiencing the effect that comes with not living in a conducive environment. I always say that a nation, right, every nation across the world, one thing you owe the citizens of that nation is good environments. Do everything that you can to ensure that shelter is not touched, in the sense that I'm living in a conducive and safe environment and security is top-notch. Do you get? I might not have all the millions and billions and everything, but if that is taken into consideration, it makes living condition even better for people. And then bringing it to the Nigerian context, because when I read, pardon me, the flood effect. When I read the story here, I wanted really to relate it to the Nigerian context, because we read stories across board. The UN give us details, figures. I mean, you did mention all the numbers and figures and the disparity. But the Nigerian context is very real. From 2022 to 2025 now, we don't even know what's going to happen in 2026. It has been bad. There are many places in Lagos that have experienced more flood than it used to before. And I've been trying to ask the question, what's the cause of this? Is it that as poverty rate increases, then flooding probably increases? Maybe people do not have the amenities, the facility, or the solution to really curtail this thing. Because if you check it many times, this flooding that happens in some places in Lagos, there are things that could have been curtailed if urban development or whatever is put into consideration. But what do you see around some places in Lagos? You see many poor people staying together in a very congested area. Drainages are not properly done anymore. So all of this would eventually, skyrocket any effect that flooding and, all of that has.
So I'll tell you one very crazy story video that I saw. So this particular person actually went to a well-dug gutter, blocked the first end and blocked the other end, packed whatever it is that was in the middle, made sure it got dry, and then made it a home. So what will happen is that this person has blocked water from coming through any angle. Water always finds a way. It will go back or find somewhere, either soak into the walls or just make sure that it finds somewhere to go. So many times I see that the Nigerian flood issue is more of a man-made problem than a climate problem. We're talking about climate shock, but many times you see waste. People would peep out, okay, nobody's coming, and just pour their dustbin inside the gutter or keep their dustbin they will turn one part of the home to waste, and then they will affect, especially in areas where there's no, how would I call it, like government allocation or something, like there's no structure.
Yes.
Especially when they buy land. So I'll buy this property now and I'm like, this is my space. So half of my land is for waste products or is for farming that is not conducive. Because sometimes in some areas, if you're rearing chickens and you're rearing them in large numbers, there's certain gas that their food, their medicine always, put in the air. Other people will be inhaling and just feel like, oh, you're a farmer and all of that stuff. So there's not enough climate thing happening. It's more of what is happening as a man-made issue. For me, from my experience, I would say that it's 70% man-made and 30% whatever the climate thing is happening. Because the climate is reacting to what is happening down here. So if our climate issue or we're having climate shock back to back, it tells us about how we are actually living or the kind of choices we make on a daily basis in our own state or in our own country. Lagos especially, if you look at the popular VGC, the Lekki and all of the big girls and all of the things, big boys that are happening, you now look at when rain. In fact, in in Lekki, I'm sorry to call out Lekki people or VGC people or VI people in general. If there's too much sun, you will feel it. If there's too much rain, you will feel it. If the weather is between hot and cold, you will feel it. Like, you cannot just go and have a good day when you come to the island, except for the beach. And if you stay too long at the beach, say, water can move it to another country. That's if you want to jackpot. So it's almost like...
Why are you saying that's like another option to jackpot?
Don't take that advice from me. But it's almost like most of the time, the most urban people are the ones who don't care about what happens anyway. Because why? They will always find a way to escape it. They will always find a way to see how they will not be part of that problem. But they are contributors to the problem. So I'm calling out people who are poor. I don't always like to use the word poor because of the space that I'm in. As somebody who runs an NGO, it's almost like calling people poor. Is like, so low-income people or low-income earners or no earners at all, because we have those set of people. They are part of the problem, but also the high-end people are also part of the problem. So it's a general problem. Nobody should leave themselves out of it.
But I beg to have like a different opinion as regards this. Like, I agree to the fact that, 70% of our problems, come from man-made, which is true. But when I come to a state like Lagos State, seeing that, I've spent most of my life in another part of I am not going to agree to the part of the low-income earner. I will put it solely on the structure of the state. You are in a place, you know how it is. You know what is. It's just like, maybe you're suffering from ulcer and then you're eating certain things. You know how Lagos is. You know the way the structure is. There are supposed to be, there are supposed to be the government of the states, urban planning, just like you mentioned, urban planning, the federal government. These things are supposed to be planned as they are planning every other thing. Because what can the low-income earner do? Because even the low-income earner in Lagos, do you know how much it takes to rent a house? Even in somewhere that is like a low area, the same money that I'm going to take to go and rent maybe semi-detached 3 bungalow in Kwara State. Do you know what it will get me here in Lagos? It's just going to get me maybe a 1-room apartment.
Self-con that you cannot invite anyone.
Two persons cannot stay inside one
It's actually self-contained. It's just you.
And if 2 people want to pass, you have to like, who are you coming first or who is going next?
Let me come out. And then I am wondering, it was here that I turned on the tap for the first time that I saw Lekki, the way Lekki water is like straight. I'm wondering that why
it's not in our cup. Why are you?
But I was just wondering
observe clean water in this office.
What kind of water is this? What's going on in this Lekki? The whole Lekki. But now imagine that this is the same place everybody wants to come to. In fact, the low-income earner does not even want to come to this place as much as the people that are even earning more. The people that should even be able to focus on planning these things well. And we are going to have the same issues every year, every now and then. We are having the same issues in Lagos State. This kind of issue now cannot happen in another state, maybe like Kwara State. Before you can hear of flooding, let's say maybe the area is not even like a flood-prone area. Maybe it's not more of water. But even with that, at least there is enough drainage. Drainage in Lagos is already filled with dirt.
Some people don't even create. I don't want to be calling out people. Let me use on TV, let me just cover their secrets. The way they
the drainage are not going anywhere.
Some houses, some churches, some mosques, some schools don't even have it. Like, they did not bother. They want to use the land, so the gutter is going to take too much. Up,
we used to have something called, I know this might sound very funny, but PSP was a major thing at that point. Do you remember PSP?
Yes.
They were always on standby to take away dirt and everything. But then after a while, I realized that those who had access to actually take their dirt to these people that were carrying it to wherever they were going to dispose it to started reduced, maybe because the payment structure for it became different and all. So going back to what you said, if we're going to put blames on anyone, it's going to be shared. And I think one thing the government has done so far, in recent times, is to have like a fire brigade approach and not a preventive one. There was a time we read on the papers that they wanted to give loans to internally displaced persons. People that are suffering from flood and all. all this money that you want to give to these people to eventually recover and to get better and to be back on their feet are money that you could have used, do you understand, to make things better. Look at the housing structure in Lagos, for example. There are some houses, there was one video I watched. A particular woman rented a house, right?
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, we have our guest.
Oluchi,
All right,
yes,
all right.
we have
I will
our
tell you
guest
my story
here.
later.
Dr. T, are you here?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. So the network
Great
took a
people.
lot of knowledge away from us to hear from you. But let's just go straight into asking the question so that we can get the best of what you want to share with us. This story is, we have expressed how shocking it is and how it's a shared problem from the government to the low-income earners to the urban areas and the kind of choices that we make. But if you were going to give us an insight about what is really happening and how these 900 million people came about, what would it be?
Can you hear me?
Yes, of course, sir. Please go on.
All right, thank you so much. The climate problem is an apocalypse, coming. Now, we know that when climate issues happens, it happens to the poorest country
Absolutely.
and affect the poorest set of people the most. And what are these four climate issues? Flood, drought, heat wave, and air pollution. Now, the people that are least likely to escape from these challenges of these climate issues are the poor people in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, and now increasingly South America, like Brazil, like Bolivia, and so on. For me, I posted that at the end of the world is going to be like a series of climate events. When you have global warming, you have heat waves, you have floods, because you are going to melt the ice caps, and then there'll be rise in sea level. All this one will lead to crop failures and displacement of people. Of course, what we call migration or climate-induced migration will increase, and there will be increasing conflict. You see IDP, you see more diseases. So our challenge now is that what temperature are we looking at? By the time the world population increases to about 6 degrees centigrade, we're going to really have the crop failure happening, malnutrition, rise in sea level, and then the climate situation will then spiral out of control. So for us, I have worked in areas where we've seen the impact of those climate changes, especially if you look at Lagos, the riverine communities in Lagos, the whole stretch of the small villages about the Lagos Lagoon are now directly impacted by the climate change. A lot of them are having issues with fishing, issues with housing, issues with navigating the waterways, affecting their school system, affecting their health system, and even affecting their daily income.
Absolutely.
Now, unfortunately, I missed the initial aspect of your discussion on climate change, so because of the network issues. Now, specifically, I would like to know the areas you want us to discuss on, whether in terms of how it affects the health, how these 900 million people can be remedied, or how we can take some actions to limit the effects of climate change before we actually witness the catastrophic event.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Tui. So we would have loved to ask all of that. We're trying to narrow it down to Nigeria, but of course, my co-anchor Oluchi here has a question for you, and that will help you, better answer our questions.
Dr. Tui, thank you so much for joining us. So initially, when we started the conversation, we were looking at flooding specifically as one of the disasters that affects, countries like ours and even other countries as well. But I think I don't want us to focus only on flooding, maybe because it affects us very directly in this part of the of Nigeria that we say. But you mentioned some other things like air pollution and rising urban heat as well. And since you want us to really focus on or bring out different areas that we can really open up, I'd like to find out some health consequences to some of these other pressing climate shocks and issues that we're experiencing in Nigeria, and to even ask if there are like new diseases that are already springing forth because of the changes that we're experiencing in our country.
The way the world is arranged is such that we have our own ecosystems. Human beings have the ecosystems, the bacteria and the animals have the ecosystem. Now, let me dwell on diseases, for instance. When you experience flooding, the likelihood of getting germs into your houses, into your body, and into your water system is increased. Now, diseases like diarrhea, vomiting, cholera, typhoid, yellow fever is higher. So, during such flooding, be prepared to have those diarrhea diseases affecting the people the more. In addition, when you look at climate change and we see the way we've increasing the air, look at the air pollution in Lagos, for instance. We have mixtures of gas particles and nitrous dioxide from cars, from particulate matters, and we observe that we breathe a lot of particles into our lungs. It increases diseases like bronchitis, asthma, cancer. In fact, what we've observed now is that pollutants in the air usually bring bad outcome to children, even in the wombs. So we are not having a clean air to drink. We're exposed to more cancers, we're exposed to more diseases because we have pollutants in our air that is not under control. We see increasing flooding because as we experience desertification, what we get is that more contact between human and animals, more encroachment into the natural ecosystem of those animals happen. Then germs can jump from animals to humans. We can get a new diseases in the sense that those germs can mutate. Of course, you remember that we never had the issue of Ebola or the issue of coronavirus this much until this climate change issue. And when human contact with those animals were increasing.
Is Dr. Tui still there? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I probably did not get the last part of that because of network, but you have mentioned how all of these things bring on diseases and cost us quite a lot in terms of lives and properties. But now let's bring it home to our health system. When disasters like floods or heat waves occur, how ready do you think our health systems are and the emergency services to respond effectively? I'm seeing a situation where I walk into a hospital and tell them that I'm having heat wave crisis, and they are going to be. I know how the reaction will be, the people side of the reaction. But now, our health system, how ready are they, to effectively respond to some of these disasters and to treat it as urgently as it should?
Yeah, maybe we should ask the question: How ready is our health system to even respond to regular health problems? So if we have a climate-induced health problems, we are most likely going to have more deaths because, for instance, look at Lagos. Where is the ambulance system? Where is the education system in terms of heat changes or even air pollution? Where are the hospitals? Where are the consultants? Where are the equipment? So in reality, we shouldn't be discussing our readiness, because in truth, we are not even ready for the mainstream health interventions. I don't talk of climate-induced health problems. So we shouldn't talk about our readiness. What we should actually do is to keep educating people, telling them what they need to do in this kind of circumstance. So preventive education is actually better than trying to figure out how to respond health-wise.
So apparently,
Indeed, there are no
home
human
remedy
resources.
does it.
Yes. No human resources for health.
Okay, I'm saying, so now we're saying that home remedy should do it over the kind of response that we're even going to get from our health system, because it seems like that doesn't even exist. But Triumph, please.
Dr. Tui, thank you so much. So there is, we've talked about flooding, we've talked about heat waves. We did not really talk about heat waves as much as I would have wanted us to talk about it. So we can know how to like really prepare. But let's talk about air pollution. In a state like Lagos State, we know how everything is like. Everything is just getting into you. You're just inhaling, you're just receiving everything, and you don't know. And lately, there's something that is happening. It's either somebody is having one illness to the other. If somebody is not complaining about this, I mean, last week I was the one who has been, I was the one dealing with my health. It was Oluchi this week. 2 weeks ago, it was goodness, and it's just everywhere. I went online, I saw, another video that am I the only one experiencing this? So I am wondering if this is what is actually happening. Is this the kind of climate experience? Is this the experience that we're having presently? Or is it just, maybe people are not just like focusing on their health, maybe it's stress, like we will say, or maybe it's just malaria, mosquitoes, or is it that people are actually getting polluted by the things that they inhale?
Lagos is a complex issue. Last month I was in Copenhagen in Denmark for a World Health Organization conference with the University of Copenhagen. Now you see a city organized to combat climate change. You see a city organized to combat pollution, and looking at the what we call particulate matters concentration in the air. And you see people that are ready to walk, ride bicycle to reduce pollution. Honestly, Lagos is not ready. We are talking about Lagos because we think Lagos should be the pathfinder or a leader, provide leadership in climate response, because Lagos is underwater. We know. Now, for me, it's actually tough that we're having this network issue. I would have loved to sit down in the studio and discuss this appropriately. Now, let us go to Lagos, for instance, and your health challenges. Look at the vehicles running Lagos. They are pushing out nitrogen dioxide and other gases into the air. And we're in traffic for hours. We are inhaling all sorts of those particulate matters. Of course, you fall sick. No doubt. Don't deceive yourself. Look at the waste collection in Lagos. Just look around you. Those are actually a cesspool of disease-breeding structures everywhere. Waste everywhere, dirt everywhere, gutters are not flowing. What else do you think should breed sickness, diseases, and mutant strain of organisms? Now, let's start all those vehicles running on fossil fuel. that we should be having more electric vehicle, we should have a kind of building, we have to have a planning system, how to reduce people's stress on the traffic, air pollution, how to collect our waste appropriately, how to manage those waste. Yeah, those things are not happening. I keep repeating it. Lagos is just a big dustbin. You may be staying in a bit clean part of the dustbin, but it's still dustbin. And unfortunately, we don't have any environment than the one we're having. If you mess up the environment will mess you up. So what can you do really? I don't know, maybe you have to get some humidifier into your house. Maybe you have to use face mask when you are commuting outside. You have to actually drink a lot of water and start looking at your own carbon footprint. We have to campaign for people to reduce their carbon footprint so that we don't start releasing toxic gases, waste products into the environment. In fact, we have to have engaged the manufacturing people because this is a multidisciplinary activities. It's not just about doctors alone.
Yeah.
The environment people are there. People that are manufacturing are there. Press people are there. So all of us must coalesce and talk and see how to tidy the environment, at least for us and people that are coming.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for sharing that and for shedding light on such a vital issue. I think that we would have this conversation again, and hopefully, if you could make it live in the studio, that will help us cut whatever network issue has stopped us from getting the best of today's conversation. But we still learned a lot, and it is a powerful conversation that we've had today. So thank you very much for that. Of course, to my co-anchors too, thank you very much for such an insightful conversation. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us on this critical and important conversation. Remember, small actions matter. Reducing waste, just like our guests have mentioned, conserving water, even as good as planting trees and holding our leaders accountable. Well, that's all we have for you today on Wade's Breakfast. Do ensure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and most importantly, stay sharp. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.